Good afternoon, traders. Chris Buss here with a mid-session update for Wednesday, May 19th. It's 11:26 as I'm starting the video. Figured it was a good chance to update everyone on where we're at. Some interesting technical action I want to review with you. Starting off with Bitcoin on the daily. Came in and tagged 28. We got a boost from Elon tweeting out he's got diamond hands. The stock price action reacted to that coming up. Real moment of truth is when it comes up, if it does, up to the 200 from below. That should be resistance now. That would be an objective level. If it breaks above, you can take it long. If it gets rejected at 33, you can get short there. Here in no man's land, there's nothing to do. If you were short already, hopefully you covered down here at the spike low. But if not, I think the next opportunity is going to be if it can close this gap up to 33. Moving on to SPY. Interesting action here. Big gap down. Now we're starting to enter that gap above 408. That would be a place to buy. Your first opportunity was down on this gap fill between 407 and 405. At the prior lows, it held with 3 consecutive candles. Now we're getting a lift. Now it can actually bounce all the way up to 410, 50, and then possibly actually fill the gap all the way up to 412. And of course, if you're long, you would be covering into these areas here, into this resistance zone on the gap fill, and then you can recycle shorts at an objective level to, once this upper gap is filled, then that should be resistance right there at 412. Moving on to the Qs, some really kind of impressive bounce, actually. I was not expecting that. Gap down, tagged the prior lows, undercut a little bit, recovered. Now we're into the opening gap, and it looks like we're headed to a gap fill up at 322. So if you had bought at the lows or bought on the gap entry, you should be in good shape. And I would hold your longs and see if you can get to 322. And you can trail your stop up if you care to do so. Any break back below 319, I think, would be bearish. If it came back and held it, I think you're okay. You wouldn't be stopped out if that's where you bought. But looks good for a solid run to 322 and try and fill the gap. IWM. A little harder trade here. Why? You got a big undercut, but it stopped in no man's land. You would have liked to seen that come down to 213 at these prior lows to get yourself a long. As it stands now, if you got long at 215.50, you're in good shape. Still a lot of work to do. You've got the gap here. I don't have the exact figure, but it looks to be like, 216.80 or something like that. And then you'd have an opportunity for a gap fill all the way up here to yesterday's close, which is at 219.64. But keep in mind, you've got a resistance level right here at 218 that may pose a problem. Moving on to Facebook, big bounce. Notice we filled this gap. Came right down to this 305, which we've been keying off of, undercut it a little bit, but your active trader buy was on a recovery of 305, and if you did that, you got a really nice trade working here as it has come up and filled this gap and even reclaimed 310, so that looks good. Apple. Let me update this chart. I see that it's not updated here. Okay. Still red on the day, not as big a bounce as the other names, but came down here to the prior low, almost made it, 122.50-ish, and got a little bit of a bounce. I think this resistance level at 124.50 is going to be tough. If you got that bounce all the way up into there, I would be covering, and I would be then shooting short against this 124.50 level and see if we come back down either today or in the days ahead. Tesla, weak, still down 4%. Gap down, came down to 550, found a little support, came up here, but has had trouble at the gap entry at 560. Notice here that the gap aligns with these prior lows, so that's going to be a stiffer set of resistances right there at 560. And I think as long as 560 is not reclaimed, you can stay short. If price makes a move into the gap, I think you got a chance for a $20 move up to 580, where I think dreams would probably die at that level on the technical gap fill. Microsoft, notice the technical action, gap down, filled this old gap right down to the prior lows. 238.50 has subsequently come up, filled the gap, and now we've got a this gap right here, gap resistance here at 240. Actually, is it yesterday's low? 242.50. So that would fill that gap right here, and then that would be resistance. I will clean up these charts by the end of the day and have those for you either tonight or tomorrow, depending on what happens this afternoon. These old gaps now have been filled, so I will take them off the chart and see what we got when we finish up. Amazon, gap down, came right to the prior gap. And for you home gamers and your technical analysis, remember that gaps are always support. The top of gaps are support, and the bottom of gaps are support. So when you tag it for the first time, often you get a bounce. We got that here. Now we've got a bit of a gap fill here yet to go up to yesterday's close. So getting a bounce out of Amazon. Same thing with Google. Had a prior gap down this morning, right to the bottom of the gap at 22.30. That held, now bouncing up, and you'll come into resistance at yesterday's close at 266 or 22.62.17 right here. So see what happens at that level. Netflix, basically flat. Came down, touched the bottom of the channel. Probably a tough trade, but bounced up and trying to get back into this trading zone here. If you're super active and on your game and you can reclaim this 485, then technically there's a chance to come up to 493. Probably wouldn't see that today, but anything can happen. Then if you drop below, you've got to get out, and then the downside this afternoon from 485 back down to the prior low would probably be in the cards. ITB, this is a live chart. I took a short on this. I was watching a 5-minute chart, and I got in. I took June 69 puts up here towards 69, so I'm up a little bit, not anything to scream about. But then my stop is the 50 right here at $70. So if this comes up and takes out 70, I'll stop out. But otherwise, I think the technical support a move down here to 67, and that's my first target. Semis have had a big bounce. Gap down to the prior low at 224, reclaimed 226. If you didn't buy it here, that was a buy here at 226 if you were interested in it. Got a big gap fill, came up here and is now stabilized. So if you got that trade, kudos to you. Depending on where you entered, whether at the opening low, when that prior low held, or at 226. You're, $4 to $6 to the good. So that was an awesome quick trade for you. Now, what you got to watch out for is afternoon selling. You can trail your stop up, and if it stays strong, your next target would be 233. So just a quick update. The close will mean everything. What we're in the midst of now is we've had technical action. Why do I say that? We went down and tested the lows, the prior lows on SPY and QQQ and a lot of these FANG names. The initial tag of the prior low held. We filled some lower gaps. Now we're working on trying to fill the opening gap. Remember, we said when we opened, we would have gaps below and gaps above. And which way was it going to break first? It broke down. We filled those lower gaps. Those lows held. And now we're working on technical action to fill the upper gaps. So if you've chosen to actively trade today, I hope you're doing well. I hope those levels really helped you, and we'll see what the afternoon brings. For those of you that are more, trading on the daily time frame, we're still on sell signals. This is all just, intraday technical action. We're still on sell signals on SPY and QQQ. And for IWM, I'm looking for a break of that 215.50 area down below that. That would secure a daily sell signal on IWM. And we've already talked about the home builders, which is on a sell signal as well. So I hope the update helped. I will touch base later in the day if there's some major development. Otherwise, I'll try to get a video out to you at the end of the day and see how we wrap up. If you're new here, I hope the levels helped. Hit the subscribe button and the alarm bell, and you'll get notified of subsequent videos. And if you jump over in the show notes, there's a place to register for all my content. Just drop in your email, and then you'll get everything midday right in your email box. You won't have to go hunting on social media or on YouTube to find it. It'll be served right up to you each and every time I publish something. So welcome aboard, and hope you have a good rest of your trading day. This has been Chris Buss with Traders Profit Compass. Talk to you next time.